going on in the news? And the biggest story right now is the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. Did you see the other day MCA saying that they're going to go on strike because they were given too little an increase in salaries, 10,000 shillings they have refused, and they're threatening to go on strike. I mean, what does that mean? There's no money. I mean, you've heard the Deputy President Rigiji saying there is no money. So take it or leave it. We're going to be talking about that right now in the studio. Joining me live is John Monyonche. Monyonche is a member, a commissioner of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. John, good to see you. Welcome to Hot 96.
Morning, Jeff.
Morning.
Thank you very much for hosting me.
It's been a minute. So the MCAs are threatening to go on strike?
Well, just like you are saying, of course, we've been informed that they are going on strike, and that's it.
What do you mean that's it? I mean, you propose to give them a 10,000 shilling increase, right? And they don't like that.
You see, remuneration reviews, when they're undertaken, they must be undertaken under certain constitutional principles. Since the establishment of the commission, salary reviews cannot be done at random and cannot be done just because you're making money. It must be done within certain principles. And one of the key principles that we look at is the principle of affordability. You must be able to afford, and then you must be able to also sustain it. So if I pay you this year or this month, I must be able to pay you into the future, because it becomes a permanent expenditure item on the payroll. That's the first thing. The next thing, I must ensure that we are able, whatever we're able to pay, okay, it may not be much, because, you know, the public service is not really an employment bureau. It's really service, giving service to the Mwananchi. And therefore, I may not be able to pay you as much as what would be paid within either the private sector or within other institutions. And therefore, there are those limits that we must be able to consider in terms of payments. Now, every 4 years, the Commission, what it does is to review and see the relevance of the salary once every 4 years. And of course, in 2017, we did a review, 17 to 21. And you recall in 2020, we had the COVID that was quite severe on this nation, and therefore the Commission did not review any pay for the 4 years of 2021 to 2025. So we postponed it by 2 years. Hopefully the economy would have revived, and thereby be able to ensure that we're able to pay those salaries. But after this year, actually last year, as we began our engagements, we can only pay what's available. Again, as I said, affordability. So we did approach our kitty, that we approached the National Treasury and asked them, look here, we'd like to review pay for the public service, right, to this extent.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, look, an SRC study on allowances revealed that there are up to 247 allowances in public service.
Yes.
247.
Jeff, 247, yes, 247 different allowances. No. Not institutions earning 247. It's when you put all of them together. If you look at allowances paid to the meteorological department, they are not the same paid to the police, they are not the same paid to KDF, they are not the same paid to the civil service, and there are that many. Why there were so many? But in public service, they actually not even more than 10 in public service. Maybe not more than 10 or 15. But if you put all of them together from the different institutions, they are about 247. Now, the challenge is that you may find that one allowance has got 5 different names. And that's what we have discovered, and that's the study that we've done. And we've discovered that we need to reduce that, we need to make it bearable so that we reduce the numbers. Where some allowances actually have lost their meaning for what they do, we would of course do away with it. Others may be renamed, others may just be consolidated.
So what exactly are you doing to streamline all that?
What we've done is, of course, undertaken, we have first of all established a guideline that helps the institutions to identify how they can consolidate, how they can be able to rename and be able to limit the number of allowances. And what we have agreed is that in the next phase that comes, we will be meeting institution by institution specific. But I think the important thing to note is whenever you look at the wage bill, you need to look at it relative to our collections, because that is the big thing. You need to look at how much are we collecting in terms of domestic revenue. Domestic revenue, of course, they estimated around 2.1 trillion. all right, in the current fund, that is 2021, 2022. All right, so it's about 50%. Now that's where the worry comes in, because if I'm paying 50% of my collection to salaries or to remuneration, then I should worry a bit. Our intention is to find a way of reducing the speed of increase, because increase may not reduce. Because of the increase in population, you require more education services, you require more hospitals, medicine, and so forth and so forth. So you require additional hands to be able to move forward the different sectors. So what we are looking at really as a commission is how can we sustainably reduce that increase of salaries, so that we go towards what we call the 35% of what the PFM actually demands. The PFM says we should be within or less than or equal to 35%. We're around 47%.
So is this sustainable, though, going forward?
That's what we're working at, Jeff. I mean, if you look at, assuming that this year we have our expenditure moving to around 3.1 trillion, for example, right?
Yeah.
And we're at 1.055 trillion. Assuming we only move by 200 billion, we would not have increased too much if you look at the ratio of what we are collecting vis-a-vis what we are paying for remuneration. So the speed can be reduced. It's very sustainable if we don't move as fast as the demands exist.
Okay, but then with every sector calling for an increase, what do you do when there's no money?
Just tell them there's no money. Those are the facts. Those are the facts. And ideally, Jeff, you cannot borrow money to pay salary. I mean, you can borrow money to build a road.
Right.
That is acceptable, but you can't borrow money to pay salary. It becomes very difficult. It's like borrowing money to go and eat in a hotel. Once you finish eating, do you think it really matters whether I can now pay or not?
No.
Exactly, that's the point. That you need to ensure that you only pay what you have. Even in your own, if you had your own factory, or even in your own house. When you realize that there's a bit of challenge in the house, you just have to reorganize yourself and say, if I have been eating 3 meals, I'll eat 2. But I must live within my means.
And what's the biggest challenge right now facing the SRC? What's the biggest challenge?
It's not a very strange challenge, Jeff. People just want more money.
Everybody wants more money.
I'm telling you, if we gave what everybody wanted, you will not hear SRC anywhere in the news. You will not hear it. But now everybody's saying, why are you not giving us what we want?
They're blaming you.
They're blaming us. And we're telling them what is the principal state? Affordability and sustainability. We can't afford it now. Maybe in another 2-3 years, we could. All right? But now we can't afford. So the challenge is first of all, we're being misunderstood. Literally everywhere, it's like every advice we give, people don't seem to feel that we are actually doing our job, like we are stepping on their mandates. And we're saying, but anything dealing with money, remuneration, constitutionally, that's our role. All right? So basically, is that understanding what is really our mandate and how deep can we go in that mandate? For example, Jeff, I can give you one of the mandates that the Constitution gives the Commission is to recognize productivity and performance. Which assumes there's already there's a way of measuring productivity and performance. That's what it assumes. Okay? Now, if that measurement does not exist, there's no way SRC can measure productivity and performance or can reward productivity and performance. And therefore, we have spearheaded on the side supporting relevant institutions to ensure that they actually establish what we call indices that can enable the Commission to be able to identify. But somebody can say, that is not your mandate. I say, it's not, but we are supposed to recognize. How do we do it? Unless we more or less work together and support relevant institutions to be able to do what they're supposed to do for us to be able to recognize. Okay? Now, if that's not understood, we'll be told we are actually usurping somebody's mandate. Okay? So that's one of the challenges we basically having, just being understood what we are supposed to be doing. But when it comes to money, nobody wants to understand what is the right way of doing it. They just want pay increase.
But tell me something, Commissioner. If the MCAs are threatening to go on strike, what's to stop the teachers? What's to stop the health workers? What's to stop the nurses? What's to stop them?
You know, the teachers, nurses have a collective bargaining agreement. MCAs don't have. There's no CBA. if there was a CBA, you would be engaging through the collective bargaining agreements. Teachers have. We've been sitting, we've been discussing. We sat with them as stakeholders. We sat with the team from there, and we are actually in agreement in terms of how to move forward. The nurses, we are waiting for the CPA to also once it matures and is ready to be discussed, we will discuss it. So it's, when it comes to trade unions, before you go on strike, there's a whole process of discussion. But CMCs are not members of unions. They are an independent arm, and they must find a way of, they can agree within themselves based on how they have agreed to associate. All right, and so that's the difference.